All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling something a lot of you wanted the scoop on. Bayern Munich's shocking loss to Feyenoord in the Champions League.
Definitely a head-scratcher.
And get this, our main source is the match report, straight from Bayern Munich themselves.
Oh, wow. Straight from the lion's den, huh?
Exactly. So we're getting this story, well, maybe not from the victors, but definitely from a unique perspective.
That's right. And what makes this report so interesting is that it really breaks down how Bayern, a team known for, controlling the game.
The dominating, right?
Yeah, dominating possession, creating chances, ended up losing 3-0. And now they're sitting at 15th in the table. Not a place you usually see them.
Not at all. So the report really emphasizes how much Bayern, controlled the game, but they just couldn't convert that control into goals.
Goals are kind of important, right?
Just a little bit.
And then on the flip side, Feyenoord, incredibly efficient, especially Giménez with those 2 goals.
It's almost like, classic David and Goliath, right?
It does have that feel, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But let's not just chalk it up to, David was scrappy and all that.
Right.
The report gives us some clues about Feyenoord's tactical approach. For instance, it mentions how Bayern's fullbacks were pushing high up the pitch, to support the attack.
Okay.
But that might have left some space, some gaps for Feyenoord to exploit on those counterattacks.
So it wasn't just, random long balls.
No.
They were strategically targeting those weaknesses.
Exactly. They knew where to hit them. And that makes their clinical finishing even more impressive, right? They knew exactly where and when to strike.
And that's where those missed chances by Bayern become, well, even more painful, right?
Oh, yeah.
The report lists a bunch. Goretzka's headers, shots from Coman and Musiala. Even Kane was denied a couple of times.
Repeatedly.
But why couldn't they convert? Was it just amazing goalkeeping by Feyenoord? Or were the chances themselves not that great?
Or was it a little bit of both?
Yeah. Or was there, some sort of psychological pressure? As the game went on and those chances kept getting missed, did it get to them?
Right.
It's almost like they had all the ingredients for a delicious cake, but they forgot to turn on the oven.
Oh, I like that.
They were dominating in almost every statistical category, but the one that matters most, goals.
Yeah.
Couldn't find them.
Yeah, you need those goals. And the report, even though it's from Bayern's perspective, it kind of unintentionally sheds light on Feyenoord's tactics.
Okay, interesting.
Now, for someone who might not follow football religiously, could you quickly break down what a counterattacking game looks like?
Sure. Imagine you're playing chess, right?
Okay.
Counterattacking in football is kind of like letting your opponent make the first move.
Uh-huh.
But then you use that forward momentum against them. So you absorb the pressure, you wait, and then bam, you strike quickly, decisively.
Perfect analogy. And Feyenoord, they executed it like a masterpiece. They didn't just defend passively, they defended with purpose, waiting for that perfect moment to unleash those counterattacks.
And speaking of those key moments, the report points out a couple that really seemed to change the flow of the game. First, there was that penalty awarded to Feyenoord.
Yeah, that penalty was definitely a turning point. It happened shortly after Guerreiro came on as a sub for Bayern, and it led to Giménez's second goal.
Oof, talk about bad timing.
Right. What's interesting, though, is that the report uses the word upended to describe Guerreiro's challenge in the box. So it seems like even Bayern might be admitting it was a fair penalty.
Ouch. A tough break for Bayern. So, 2-0 Feyenoord thanks to that penalty. But the report also highlights another key moment, and it's not another goal.
No, this one's about an injury.
Right. Alphonso Davies goes down early.
That's a tough one. He's such a vital part of their attack.
Exactly. Speed, those runs down the left flank, he's a game changer. Losing him so early forced Bayern to, completely adjust their plan. And who knows, maybe that threw off their whole rhythm.
Yeah, it can definitely disrupt the flow.
So you've got Feyenoord capitalizing on their chances and then Bayern having to adapt on the fly. It's like they were trying to solve a puzzle, but someone kept swapping out the pieces.
That's a great way to put it.
And the report lists all these substitutions Bayern made throughout the game. Sané, Pavlović, Gnabry, even bringing in Müller. It's like they were desperately trying to find that right combo to, unlock Feyenoord's defense.
Almost like they were trying everything they could.
But it just wasn't their night.
It happens?
It seems like they threw everything but the kitchen sink at Feyenoord, but nothing worked.
Yeah.
But before we dig deeper into those substitutions and see if they were actually effective, let's hit a pause here.
Okay, sounds good. We've covered a lot. I mean, the unexpected result, Feyenoord's tactical approach, and those key turning points. Anything standing out to you so far from this first part of the match report? You know what really strikes me is like, it wasn't just Feyenoord's efficiency. It was also about Bayern's, well, inability to adapt. They seemed almost stuck in their usual like dominant style, like they just expected to bulldoze Feyenoord.
Right, right.
But Feyenoord, they had a plan. And Bayern just seemed completely caught off guard.
It's like they walked onto the pitch expecting a waltz, and Feyenoord started a mosh pit.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Speaking of those substitutions, do you think they were effective at all? Like, the report mentions Sané, Pavlović, Gnabry, even Müller coming in.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like any of them really changed the course of the game.
And that's where the deep dive gets really interesting. Just looking at the names doesn't give you the full picture. You got to consider, like, when those substitutions happened.
Oh, okay.
What positions they filled.
Yeah.
And even what kind of psychological impact they might have had on the team.
Okay.
For example, the report mentions Sané coming on at the 64th minute. Was that just too late to really make an impact? Did he have enough time to, like, gel with the team?
Yeah.
To find his footing?
Makes you wonder if the manager, like, out of sheer frustration, just started throwing things at the wall to see what would stick.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But instead of finding a solution, it seems like those late substitutions just added to the chaos.
Right.
The report even mentions a red card for Bayern's Ulreich late in the game.
Oh, wow.
Like, everything that could go wrong did go wrong for them.
And the red card is especially intriguing to me. It happened in the 88th minute, like long after the match was pretty much decided.
Yeah.
So the question is, why was Ulreich sent off? What was the context?
Right.
These details, they can reveal a lot about the team's mentality in those final moments.
You think so?
Yeah. Was there like frustration boiling over,
Yeah.
leading to rash decisions?
That's an interesting point. The report doesn't really go into detail about the red card incident, unfortunately.
Oh, too bad.
But it does mention that Feyenoord scored their third goal just minutes before,
Oh, okay.
courtesy of Ayase Ueda. So maybe that final goal was like the nail in the coffin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That led to some frustration, and then boom, the red card.
It's definitely possible. You can imagine the atmosphere on the pitch. Bayern, desperate to get back in the game. Feyenoord, defending like crazy and still hitting them on the counter.
Yeah.
And then, bang, Ueda seals the victory.
Oh, man. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions, right?
Uh-huh.
Bayern starts the game dominating. Feyenoord weathers the storm and then completely turns the tide.
With tactical brilliance.
It really highlights how, football isn't just about individual skill.
Right.
It's about teamwork, strategy, and being able to adapt to your opponent.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And let's not forget about the crowd. The report mentions an attendance of over 51,000.
Whoa.
That's huge.
That's a massive home crowd for Feyenoord.
Oh, yeah.
And their energy must have been, like, electrifying. Imagine that roar when Giménez scored that penalty.
Oh, man, I bet it was deafening.
Or when Ueda put the game beyond reach. Wow, over 51,000 fans. You can almost feel that energy, like just reading the report.
Right.
How much do you think that home crowd advantage played into Feyenoord's performance? Did it add pressure on Bayern? Or maybe fuel Feyenoord's confidence?
It's hard to quantify, but that psychological impact, a roaring home crowd, it can be huge.
Yeah.
It can lift the home team, make them feel invincible, and at the same time, totally intimidate the opponent.
Right.
So yeah, I'd say the crowd played a pretty big role in Feyenoord's victory.
It's like having an extra player on the field.
And speaking of players, the report does highlight some standout performers for both sides. Obviously, Giménez had a fantastic game, 2 goals.
He's on fire.
What stood out to you about his performance?
His positioning, man, and his timing, impeccable. He always seemed to be in the right place at the right time to capitalize on, any little defensive lapse from Bayern.
Yeah.
And the report specifically calls out his first goal.
Yeah.
Where he finished a fine counterattack, which just highlights that clinical finishing ability he has. And then the second goal, from the penalty spot, nerves of steel.
Ice in his veins.
But even beyond the goals, like his overall movement, his link-up play, impressive.
He was a constant threat.
But let's not forget about Feyenoord's goalkeeper, Bijlo. The report uses words like fine and on hand to describe some of his saves. It's almost like he knew where Bayern was going to shoot every time.
He was like a wall. It wasn't just reflexes, it was anticipation, reading the game. The report even mentions him clawing away an early Kimmich corner.
Yeah.
And then those crucial saves against Coman and Kane, those were huge.
Yeah.
Especially early on when Bayern was really applying the pressure.
Right, right. Now, shifting gears to Bayern's side, even in this, disappointing loss, some players still had their moments. Kimmich, his usual energetic self in the midfield.
Trying to make things happen.
Yeah, but it felt like he was trying to conduct an orchestra where everyone was playing a different tune.
Yeah. I get that. And it's interesting you use that analogy because the report highlights Kimmich's passing stats. 88 completed passes out of 96 attempts. 92% success rate.
Wow.
But those numbers, they don't tell the whole story.
What do you mean?
Well, were those passes actually effective in breaking down Feyenoord's defense?
Mm-hmm.
Or were they mostly like sideways and backward passes that ultimately led to nothing?
That's a great point. It's like having a fancy sports car but being stuck in traffic.
Exactly. All that power and precision, but nowhere to go.
And then there's Kane. He might not have scored, but the report does mention, a couple of decent attempts on goal, including one where Bislow made a spectacular save.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
So Kane's performance, it's almost like a microcosm of Bayern's struggles, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
He had the talent, the experience, the individual brilliance, but it just didn't translate into goals.
So the question is, was it Feyenoord's tactical masterclass that shut him down? Or was there an element of bad luck? Or maybe Kane was just having an off day. It's hard to say for sure.
I think it was probably a combination of factors. But it does make you wonder, what if just one of those chances had gone in for Bayern?
Oh, that's interesting.
Would it have changed the momentum of the match? Would Feyenoord have crumbled under the pressure? Or would they have stuck to their game plan and still come out on top?
That's a fascinating thought experiment. Football is a game of, fine margins. A single moment can change everything.
Totally.
And in this case, those missed chances, they were fatal for Bayern.
Okay, so we've talked about the individual performances, the role of the crowd, and Bayern's, struggles to adapt. But let's shift our focus back to the bigger picture. What does this loss say about Bayern Munich right now? Are they still the dominant force they've been for so long? Or are we starting to see some cracks in their armor?
Yeah, it's a tough question. On the one hand, Bayern clearly had, an off night. They missed chances they normally bury. And Feyenoord just, they played a brilliant tactical game, exposed those weaknesses.
Right.
But this isn't the first time, Bayern's had an unexpected stumble.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes this loss, so interesting.
Yeah.
Is it just a blip, or is it a sign of something bigger?
Right.
Like maybe the balance of power is shifting,
Yeah.
or other teams are figuring out how to, how to play against them, exploit those vulnerabilities.
Yeah. The report itself doesn't really, make any grand predictions about Bayern's future. I mean, it's a match report. It's focused on that specific game.
But you can kind of sense, between the lines, a shift in the narrative around Bayern.
Totally. There's a lot of talk about, their aging squad, the lack of depth in certain positions, and maybe they've become a little too predictable in their style of play.
Yeah, it's like that saying, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind.
Right.
And in a league as competitive as the Bundesliga, not to mention the Champions League, you can't afford to stand still.
Exactly. And that's why these next matches against Freiburg and Slovan Bratislava, those are going to be crucial.
Yeah.
Will Bayern bounce back, prove this loss was just a bump in the road?
Right.
Or will those cracks we talked about, will they become, more obvious under pressure?
The Freiburg match especially is going to be a real test.
Oh, yeah.
They're well organized. They've been playing really well. They're not going to be intimidated by Bayern.
Not at all. And I'm really interested to see, tactically, how Bayern approaches that match. Will they stick to their, possession-based game? Or will they try to mix things up? Maybe a more direct approach? Or, press higher up the pitch to disrupt Freiburg's build-up play?
It's like they're at a crossroads.
Yeah.
Do they double down on what's worked in the past? Or do they adapt, evolve to meet these new challenges?
The pressure is definitely on. I mean, Bayern fans, the board, they're used to success.
Of course.
A couple of stumbles, okay, maybe. But if this dip in form continues, there are going to be some serious questions.
For sure. And, we've talked about tactics, formations, all that. But there's also, the mental side of this loss.
Mm-hmm.
How do the players, the manager, recover from a defeat like this?
Yeah, that's a part you can't really see in a match report.
Right.
But I'm sure there's a lot of, soul-searching happening over there at Bayern right now.
This deep dive has really shown that football is more than just what happens on the pitch for 90 minutes.
It's about the stories, the expectations, the constant battle to stay ahead.
It's a reminder that even the giants can fall.
Yeah.
And to stay on top, you got to keep evolving. You got to adapt.
Well said. Whether Bayern Munich can do that, that remains to be seen. But this loss to Feyenoord, it's definitely giving them and everyone else a lot to think about.
It really has. And it's given us a fascinating look into, just how complex this sport can be. It's always full of surprises.
Always.
So we've broken down the tactics, the performances, and all the what-ifs. But the best part of a deep dive is always the questions it leaves us with.
Absolutely. And today, the big one is, what's next for Bayern Munich?
Yeah.
Can they learn from this and come back stronger? Or is this the beginning of a decline? Only time will tell.
Yeah, and, we've talked about what Bayern could have done differently. But what about Feyenoord?
Good point.
What impressed you most about their performance? What were the keys to their success? Keep those questions in mind as you continue following the Champions League.
I will.
That's it for our deep dive today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.